We have Robin here from Ruined Sky Games. Hey, Robin, how are you?
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. So Robin is going to talk to us about Circulari. This is a game of resource management for up to 4 players. And get this, it's set in the accretion disk of a black hole.
Okay, now that's an intriguing location for a game.
Do you know what? I'm gonna unleash some science knowledge on you here, right?
Robin, brace yourself.
We have just discovered things called planets.
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 Black hole planets?
Black hole planets.
Okay.
These
I kind of thought that's where this was going.
Yeah, so these are not planets that were being captured by a black hole. These are planets that actually form in the accretion disk of a black hole. In fact, according to their calculations, the accretion disk of a black hole will be more effective at creating planets than the accretion disk of a star, or the
gravitational.
Yeah. So there you go.
That's interesting.
So planets.
Fascinating.
You learn something every day, eh?
And all of a sudden, we have the next expansion for this game.
Robin, what can you tell us about Circulari?
So Circulari is a game of tactics and resource management for 1 to 4 players. And as you said, it's set in the accretion disk of a black hole. Where the idea came from was I was thinking about a lot of the board games that I like. And I think I came to this realization, and I think a lot of people come to it, I don't think it's particularly novel, but you realize you like this game and you're playing with other people and you're having fun, but you're not really interacting with them a great deal. You know, it's kind of like a race. You know, you've got your board, or you've got your cards, and you're accumulating points and resources or whatever. But at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is, who wins first. Sure, there might be a few sort of technical things that affect the other players, but there's very little in terms of that direct interaction. And I guess that's where the idea for Circulari came from. Partly was trying to make a game which was about really having a lot of interaction, but without that interaction being quite directly aggressive. Obviously, some games are very interactive because they're basically about killing the other players. But whereas Circulari has this kind of intense degree of interaction where you're really thinking a lot about what the other players are going to do and what situation that's going to leave you in at the beginning of your next turn, but without being kind of violent.
Yes. So the game was first prototyped in 2018, yes?
Yes, that's right. So the chief inspiration for Circulari was playing a game called Sail to India. It's a game I really like. I don't think it's hugely well known, but it's a really nice, compact, small box economic game. It's very austere with just a few cards and cubes, and yet all this kind of rich gameplay comes out of it. So I was playing Sail to India, and then I think just afterwards I played a game of Tiny Epic Galaxies, which probably is much more well known, I think. And I was thinking, I like Sail to India, but wouldn't it be cool if it was in space? So that's where the very first prototype came from. I think just some ideas started circulating around in my head. Circulating.
See what you did there.
I think, within a couple of weeks, I put together the first prototype of what became Circulari. Based on that inspiration, it's diverged quite a bit from that original inspiration, but that's where it all started.
And what is the plan for the game? Are you planning to go to Kickstarter with this?
That is the plan. So since 2018, in fact, I can show you, here we go. This is, there you go. Oh, you can barely even see it in the light. There you go. That's the very first prototype from back in 2018, just a bunch of boxes on a card. And basically ever since then, been playtesting it loads and polishing it. I think we'll see a little bit later on that's in flight. So now taking it to Kickstarter actually seems a realistic and perhaps even imminent prospect. And I'm hoping that May 2021 is my target. I'm hoping that then we'll be able to launch a campaign and all the pieces will will fall into place.
Yeah. No, we've been looking at some images of it here, Robin. It has certainly come a long way from the black and white card that you held up that was created in 2018. Who's the artist behind the project with you?
So the artist is called Shimek Dimitruk, and I've been working with him for a couple of months now, and the artwork has gone through various stages. The initial several rounds of artwork that I tried to produce, which was not terrible, but somewhat below commercial standard. And then we had a different artist who I enjoyed working with, but unfortunately he had some difficulties and he was unable to continue. And that ultimately led to my teaming up with Shmek. We've been working together for a couple of months now. He's partway through redoing all the artwork in the game. So the asteroid boards that you'll see they've now been fully schmecked. And looking really nice. And also the new space station, and which you'll see in the prototype. I'm just waiting on the black hole. So he's currently redoing the black hole. The black hole you'll see in the prototype is my own creation, but what Schmeck's doing is going to be much, much better. I've seen some drafts, but it's not quite ready for public view yet.
Yeah,
let's see.
You've been porting it to Tabletop Simulator and to Tabletopia, sorry.
Circularity on the brain.
Yeah.
Sucking you in.
And so that people can demo it and try it out during Virtual Expo. Do you want to bring it up and show people around?
Yeah, let's see if we can make that work. Right, bring up the window, and here we go. Press the right buttons. Share. Oh, there we go. Can you see that?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Excellent. So this is the stock view from Tabletop Simulator, and as you're right, I have been demoing it during the expo. I logged on at 9 a.m. this morning, and I've been demoing all the way to the close of show events at exhibitor events at 6 p.m. today. So got quite a few demos in. It's been an exhausting time, but it's been great fun to share Circulari and show it off to so many people, and I've had a good response. So I'll just zoom in a little. There we go. So you can take a better look at the pieces. So what we've got here is the black hole board with the black hole. There we go. And the space station just underneath those cubes there at the top. And surrounding it, the asteroids. And I think if I press there's a button you can press. Oh, there we go. You can zoom in and see those components a little bit more clearly. So possibly that I should be calling them blasteroids, since
planet.
I have to have a major rebranding exercise now. So the basic mechanics of the game, I think what makes it interesting, one of the interesting aspects of the mechanics, is that it has this two-phased turn structure. Players take it in turns, but each turn consists of these two phases. The first phase is the action phase, and that kind of focuses on manipulating the cubes here. So people pick up their cubes, and you can see there are these different slots for different functions, propulsion, extracting metal and collecting energy. And these cubes, which represent your fleet of mining robots, can be deployed around the orbit of the black hole and onto different asteroids. But then once you finish the action phase, there's then this secondary kind of movement, which I will illustrate. And I'm glad I've got Tabletop Simulator up, because it comes across really nicely in Tabletop Simulator. I'm gonna illustrate it here. Basically, you then can maneuver the asteroids themselves. So you just basically bring that round, and there we go. And when you drop it, everything shifts out of the way, which is quite a nice gesture. It's not too difficult a gesture to perform with cardboard components. But you can imagine, if you've played with Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia, they do make some things harder to manipulate. It's harder to manipulate the components, and what can be an easy physical gesture can become trickier in that digital realm. And so it's really nice that the scripting that I've done has turned out nice for this Tabletop Simulator port, because everything happens really fluidly. You just kind of need to indicate what you want to do, and it more or less happens for you.
Nice.
Yeah, so this is one of the things that really leads to the high degree of interactivity in the game, because these asteroids are your playing field, if you will, and you have your mining robots are deployed onto various different locations. But what happens is in the command phase, people start maneuvering the asteroids because they want to get them into position, say around here. In this waste rock deorbiting slot here that's indicated, in order to deorbit them and drop them into the black hole. And that's shifted everything else. And so you have to think, when you're taking your turn, okay, so here's what I want to do. I need to put my things here, and I need to move my stuff there. But also, however many other players you're playing with, what are they going to do on their turns? How do they move? And what is it they want to do? And how does that leave the state of the play, the situation on the board at the beginning of my next turn? Am I, do I need to mitigate against that? Can I take advantage of it? Does somebody really want to do something that actually is going to move things that's good for me if I can just take advantage of it?
So you've got a nice piece of tactical movement engineered in there where you're trying to outguess everybody else at the table with you.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Nice. I like that. I like that kind of mechanic because it's something that if you're quite clever, you can read the table.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I guess there's a sort of a psychological element to it, because it's interesting, right? Because I suppose there's no randomness in Circulari. The starting condition is the same. There's no dice or decks of cards except in the solo version, and yet every game is quite different, and that's because the different players bring to the table different ideas and different models of how they're going to play this game. And that very quickly, that's what defines the uniqueness of any given playing session, right? It is that the people bring that with them, and once they start moving, everything, the chaos erupts.
See, this is something that happens anytime you and me play, Warren. I will always play a game very differently as soon as I know you're at the table versus if I know John's at the table. We've played together long enough that I know the kind of tactics that you will pull out and play in most given games.
I will go all in.
Yes, and try and murder me. But it's nice to see that the game can actually handle that kind of thought process from the players.
Yeah, it's I have big respect for games that that remove a lot of the randomness out, because it's not an easy thing to do, to pull off a game where it's completely strategic. So yeah, it's very, very interesting to see this come together. What about the player boards then? Can you take us on a tour of the player board?
Let's have a little tour. Rotation. Got to remember my tabletop simulator controls. Right, okay, here we go. Let's zoom in a little bit and get a good view of one of the player boards. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so there's a couple of different components going on here. So at the top of the board, you've got the talent track. So basically, the objective of the game is to be recognized as the most talented Circulari, the best, have songs sung about you and ballads written back on wherever it is you hail from, back on your home civilization, for being the most talented Circulari and sending as much resources, that is to say metal and energy that you extract from the accretion disk, back home to your home civilization. So players in a number of different ways can earn these talent points during the game, and when someone reaches a score of 7 points or more, then that triggers the beginning of the end. So there's a final round, so everyone gets a chance to pip you to the post, see if they can get a little bit further than you did, often the case. But then at the end of that, then you score up, and the player with the highest talent score is the winner. On the left-hand side of the player board, we've got this nice quick reference area, which basically shows the different things you can do in each of the two phases. So you've got the action phase that comes first. So you can do things like deploy robots. This is where you take some unused robots off your fleet board, and you can add it to the action out there around the black hole. And then move robots is basically allows you to move your robots around.
Yeah.
So you have these things called movement modules, which basically control how far you're allowed to move your robots whenever you play that action. And the next action, the upgrade action, allows you to upgrade that during the course of the game. So this is one of the... There's not a huge amount of engine building in Circularia. It is much more tactical, but there is a teeny little bit. So you can upgrade your capabilities and get more movement modules, which allow you to move around your robot fleet further and faster. And you can get more command channels, which are basically allow you to control more asteroids. So at the beginning, you can only move one asteroid every turn, but if you upgrade to the max, you might be moving as many as 3. And then once the action phase is over, then there are these commands. So there's the shifting, the one at the top there, which is basically the kind of movement that I showed you. It's essentially, logically speaking, it's basically swapping an asteroid with its neighbor. And if you do that repeatedly, then you move around the board. And when you get to the extrema, if I just scroll back over here, when you get next to the space station, if we do a little bit dragging, there we go. When you get next to the space station, you have the situation where the labels line up, because the asteroids are played in these 2 different orientations. So an asteroid is either a metal or asteroid rich in resources waiting to be mined, or it's a waste rock asteroid that's already been mined out and is just waiting to be deorbited. And that's indicated by the orientation of the asteroid, because you can see it has labels, upside down labels at each end. And so by rotating it, you keep track of that state. And what you're trying to do in the command phase with all this maneuvering of asteroids is you want to get your metal ores round to here, and you want to get your waste rocks round to here. And it's at this point then that these other commands come into play. They allow you to get the metal out of the asteroids, and the deorbit one, basically, as you deorbit your asteroid into the black hole, there's a reward for helping keep the orbit free of hazardous debris, and also there's some energy generated which people can pick up. I guess this is another factor, kind of like there are a number of different things, a number of different systems that are going on that kind of all work subtly differently to each other, because one of the things that happens with these slots is that you can have different players who are sharing control or sharing the utility of a single asteroid. And so you might have somebody in control of moving it, and somebody else, somebody different, a different set of people, waiting to yield the what's the word? The bounty of having actually mining it. And so there are these sort of competitive and collaborative dynamics that arise, because when you're sharing a single asteroid like this, then that might be something you're happy to do if you think it's fair, if you think it's in your interests. And so you can have a situation where players are sort of informally collaborating at any given moment, even though at the end of the day, only one can be victorious. And people have this sense of fairness over whether the amount of effort that they put in is matched by the rewards that they're going to get out of it. And so there are opportunities to kind of parasitize off the other players. And then that leaves the other player having to think, well, am I okay with this? Is this a small loss? Am I willing to tolerate this? Maybe I am, because I'm almost there and it's going to yield me a much bigger return. Or sometimes people just go, well, no, this isn't fair anymore. And so they just take, rather than continuing to push the asteroid where it needs to go, they just decide, well, I'm going to move somewhere else. I'm going to do something else. And your parasite is just wasted now. And these are the kind of dynamics that occur with that. So yeah, my scrolling has gone all funny. Yeah, and so then the other area really of the player board there is this resource area. There's 2 kinds of resources in the game, and metal represented by the yellow cogs, and energy represented by the blue thunderbolts. And basically, you have these storage robots, which are basically holding the resources, and you can fill them up. Each one can hold 4 units of any given resource. And as you accumulate, well, if you accumulate more resources, you need to employ more and more cubes. So there's this kind of fungibility of the cubes, because they represent both your robots, but also your resource holding capacity. And you only have so many. So there's a trade-off you need to make there. If you store a lot of resources, it means you can't have a big fleet. If you've got a big fleet, you need to make sure you're running light on resources.
Wow.
It's very interesting. Because
It's a deep game, isn't it? Yeah.
there's a lot of tactical depth there, but that interaction that you're talking about, it's, am I able to, okay, so say Warren's controlling this asteroid, he's about to, dig in and get a lot out of it. If I can maybe get a cheeky little one of my robots in there, I can maybe just grab a little resource off that while he's at it, without having to struggle too much and compete with him.
I love the technical aspects of this. Of trying to orbit my asteroid around so that I can actually move to an extraction phase to extract the ore from it, and then having to continue that process of orbiting so as I can then get it around to the other side to deorbit it. And I imagine at that point then a new asteroid can be drawn.
Yeah, so basically there's this extra spare asteroid, what we call the outer disk. So basically, once you deorbit this in, you just bring in a new one like that.
Wow.
And then the process of the orbit of the accretion disk begins once again.
Yeah, basically, metal ore is turning into waste rock, and waste rock's being replaced by fresh metal ore. So this is a kind of economy. Again, it's another things you can see is that if people get too focused on doing one thing, like everyone wants metal ore, then you just start to run low on the number of metal ore asteroids.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just left with waste rock flying everywhere.
Yeah, until somebody starts to pick up the other side of that economy.
Yeah. Oh, it's fascinating.
And it also means you're not always in direct competition, because it might be the correct tactical point for me to be working on that waste economy side, while it's the correct point in the game for you to work on the metal ore side of the economy.
Yeah.
So you're not constantly struggling against each other. There are reasons, and good reasons, to actually be working and leaving each other to actually get on with the work.
How have you managed the handling the various permutations that you've discovered in this design? Have you used computer modeling or something to try and work through the simulation of this, or?
Yeah, so I do actually have a computer simulation of this with an AI player. I originally started writing it with a view, I think, that I'd like to have a mobile app version, but it's proved much more useful in the immediate to some of the more immediate problems that I've been facing. One of the fears that I have as a designer, because I've heard about this happening to other people. I can't bring any examples to mind, but I think you probably recognize the story where you hear somebody says, "Oh, X is a great game." Yeah, no, it was a great game, but you can't really play it. You can't really play the rules in the box anymore, because now we know you basically do Y. Y is the way to win.
Yes.
Or now we basically know, well, the second player always wins. I have this fear, right, that you go through this whole process of you play test and you get your artwork done, you go to Kickstarter and you get your game. Well, wouldn't it be really heartbreaking to discover that that had happened to your design?
It's broken.
And it's really hard to kind of personally, I feel to feel confident about those kind of aspects of a design. And obviously, the classic example is just to playtest it a lot. And I have done a lot of what I'm now going to call human playtesting with Circulari. But even so, I just think even if the number of games that it's possible to play with actual people. I know, unless you did nothing else all day every week. I just wonder if it's really possible to get the amount of data that to really make you feel comfortable with some of these things. Because don't forget, it's not just you need to play a lot of games and find out whether or not you think, for example, that the game is fair with respect to the starting the player's position in the turn order. But also, every time you make a change to the game, that potentially invalidates all the data that you have already. And so this is one of the things that I've applied computer modeling to. It is not a substitute for human playtesting. Perhaps it's not really fair to call it playtesting at all, but it is a source of information because you can run, thousands and thousands of games. Now, obviously, if the information you get out of that is useless, then that's not very helpful, doing useless things thousands of times. But I think there is some merit to it if you use it carefully in conjunction with also the results you get from real playtesting and to some extent one's intuition. So one of the things, one of the problems that I had with Circulari was that I begun to feel uncomfortable with the way that the game ended. And the way I designed it originally was to give everyone an equal number of turns. So basically, the game always finishes just before the starting players in the turn order would have another turn. But when playtesting
Robin, do you want to close down your screen share for a moment?
You're right, I am talking more and tabletop simulating less.
Yes. There we go.
There we go.
There we go. I'm back again. What was I saying? Right, yeah. So I had this problem with Circulari where I was unhappy with the way that the game ended, right? Because I basically designed it to give everyone an equal number of turns, and that just feels fair. Obviously, if everyone gets an equal number of turns, then surely the game is fair. But playtesting it in person, what I actually experienced was that the game would end, and then at that point, everyone had kind of forgotten what position they were, in the original starting order. And it just seemed kind of random that some people got an extra turn, but some people didn't get an extra turn because they'd already had their allotted quota of an equal number of turns.
Yeah.
And I was worried that actually this was making it unsatisfying for players. But also I wasn't sure whether it was really fair to begin with at all. Yeah. And so I had this intuition, but I wasn't fully confident in it. And so that's where the computer modeling came into play, is I could then construct some experiments using the computer model and experiment with different ways of ending the game. Things like everyone gets an extra turn, and everyone gets an equal number of turns, or the game finishes immediately, and then see whether what the difference was between the percentage of players who won. Like, what percentage of time does the first player win? What percentage of time does the second player win? So I did this. And what I found from those simulations is that it showed that giving everyone an extra turn actually was the most fair, and that matched with my intuition, which was that I was at that point already tempted to change the rules to give everyone an extra turn because I thought that would be more fun.
Yeah.
But I was worried that it would make the game unfair. And so the intuition combined with the computer data then gave me the confidence to change the rules to give everyone that extra turn. Because the evidence seems to suggest that actually that doesn't make the game less fair, it makes it more fair. So it seemed like together that was the right thing to do.
It makes it fair, but probably just as importantly, it makes it more fun by the sounds of it.
It gives you that catch-up mechanic where it's just like, you just edged it and you won.
Yeah.
That's a really satisfying way to win a game like this, is if, you're maybe just a couple of points behind your opponent, and that last turn you pip them on the post and get them by 1 point.
How have you found being a new publisher? How's been your experience of coming and working within the industry?
It's a lot of work. I think anyone who's attempted it, or even the designers who haven't, would tell you that. Because in the course of playtesting Circulari and going to things like playtesting groups, I've met a lot of designers, and there are a lot of people who are really happy just to design games, and more power to them. that's absolutely great for them. You come up with a really good mechanic, and you kind of you get it to a kind of a good situation where you can pitch it to a publisher, and they like it, and they go, right, okay, we're going to deploy our resources, and we're just going to polish this until it's really good, and we're going to get some art, and you don't need to worry anything out, and you don't then as the designer need to worry about anything else. And in fact, for the designer, for the person who really loves just designing games, that's brilliant, because then they can move on to the next design. And I'm sure that there are people I know whose heads are just full of ideas, and all they want to do is just try out new stuff, and that works really well. But I find personally what motivates me is finishing things. I really want to see things through to the end. Possibly there's a degree of control freakery in there, perhaps. But I really want to have that overview of the whole process, and I think that's what's really satisfying for me. Is taking it from that very first beginning, that very roughest prototype, as I stuck in front of the camera earlier, and then just polishing it and seeing it all the way through to getting hopefully what's going to be a really nice, polished, commercial quality game. But it is a lot of work, and the downside to that is that I haven't really designed anything else since I started working on Circulari. I designed a few games before it. It wasn't the first game I designed. None of those games, those pre-Circulari designs, were particularly good in retrospect. They were okay, but when I designed Circulari, when I played the very first game, if I remember clearly, I played the prototype the first time with my wife and some friends, and I think we played it for about an hour. And when we realized that the game just wasn't going to end anytime soon, because the rules weren't right, people just weren't scoring at the right rate at all. And so we stopped, and we made some changes to the rules, and we played it again, which was really, really kind of my friends to do that. But after that, I could see straight away that, while it was very unpolished, there was a really good idea at the heart of what I was trying to do. And since then, I've just focused on Circulari to the exclusion of everything else, and just been trying to get it through that process, the play testing, the refinement, and now moving on to some of the more commercial aspects, things like marketing. There's no point in making a game if no one knows about it, no one wants to buy it. The pre-production stuff, getting the artwork done and getting it into the right format to be manufactured, getting quotes from manufacturers. There's a lot to do, but I'm really looking forward to what the result's going to be, and I hope everyone else will be too.
Well,
let me just quickly show your virtual stand. So for any of our viewers watching, if you fancy getting a demo, a live demo of Circulari, there are demos running tomorrow between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. You can jump on to Ruined Sky's own Discord channel. I highly recommend you do that. It'd be a great way to interact with Robin. And you can also hop onto their Twitch channel as well. So Robin, that's how people get involved now. I just want to talk a little bit about the future and your future plans for 2021. It's hard because nobody really knows just exactly where we're going to be at, even in a few months' time, whether events will be possible even in 2021. So what is your hopes?
Well, certainly I hope that next year we won't be having a virtual UK Games Expo, but a real live one. And if so, we'll definitely be there. So the expected date for next year's UK Games Expo is at the beginning of June. So we're hoping to launch the Kickstarter in May, and then the campaign will be running then over the UK Games Expo with a chance for people to demo the game while the campaign's running, and hopefully pick up some more backers. So I mean, that is certainly the hope. As you say, it's hard to tell. I mean, there are conventions that are a little bit earlier, like AirCon. So AirCon was in fact the last convention that we went to before the UK entered lockdown, and I think quite possibly it may well have been the last significant event before the lockdown, because it really was only a matter of weeks. I think.
Yes.
We came back from Harrogate, and it was pretty much straight into the lockdown situation. So I've heard from them, and they're sort of trying to sort out their plans for March of 2021. Unfortunately, the Harrogate Convention Centre, which is where they normally hold Aircon in Harrogate, is still going to be used as a Nightingale hospital at that time. So, they're looking into what else they can do. Hopefully, perhaps we'll see an Aircon in 2021 as well. But we just have to see. I mean, it's a fluid situation.
It is, Robin. I imagine
that it's going to get better.
Yeah, you'll be like the rest of us. I think we're pretty much trying to get a vision until December, see what the winter brings us, and then see what the possibilities are as we start to enter the new year. Robin, it has been an absolute pleasure to explore Circulari with you. It's an incredible piece of design, and I'm wishing you all the best. Definitely keep in touch, because we'd love to let our communities know as you head towards Kickstarter next May.
And fingers crossed, we do get a UK Games Expo next year, and we'll be able to come along and actually have a chat with you, buddy.